Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Bless his name. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Bless his name. Bless your great name, O Most High Yah. Bless you for your mercies and your graciousness to us on this Shabbat. Hallelujah. The Most High be praised. Well, the Most High be praised. This time we want to begin our Shabbat worship time as we gather together. And we thank the Almighty for those of you who are tuning in with us on this Shabbat. Those of you all over the world that believe in the Most High and who trust in his great name and who honor the Shabbat. This time we want to open in prayer. Abinu Makenu, thank you for your mercies. Thank you for your graciousness. Thank you for your kindness to us. We bless you for this Sabbath that you have given to us. Mashiach, our King, said that the Shabbat was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Abba, you gave it as a gift to us, not just to your covenant people, but you gave it as a gift to mankind, the whole human race, whom you are calling through your covenant people to return to you and receive redemption. We bless you on this Sabbath. I pray, Most High, that you would forgive us of our sins, that you would cleanse us of our iniquities, anything that we may have done both in word or in deed that may not have pleased you. Wash us, purge us, renew us, and strengthen us. May everything said and done during this time bring glory to your great name. We bless you, Most High, for the mighty one of Israel, our Messiah, Yahshua, and may he receive the glory out of all things that are done. In the mighty name of Yahshua, we give thanks. Amen. We bless the Almighty for his great grace. At this time, as is our custom, we want to declare the Shema. Bless the Most High Yahweh, found in the book of Devarim. The book of Devarim, commonly called Deuteronomy. Devarim is the name that Moses gave to this book, which means the words. The book Devarim is the book that contains the word of Elohim to the world. And so it's important that we regard this book. It does not mean second law as the name Deuteronomy means. Deuteronomy is a Greek name that was attached to the book after it was translated into Greek. But I emphasize this because it's my aim to draw our attention back to the original concept and to the original intent of the Almighty, so that we can see what was in the mind of Moses via the Ruach, or via the Spirit in him, that identified this book as being the word of Elohim to his people and to the nations. So we're going to declare the Shema, found in the book of Devarim, chapter 6, verse 4. Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah, our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your might. Take to heart these instructions, which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Now let us turn to the 5th chapter of the same book, Devarim. And we want to begin at verse 6. And I'm going to read through to verse 18 of the scriptures that I have. I'm reading from the Tanakh. And in other scriptures, the numeration of the verse that would end would most likely be verse 21. So we're going to read beginning at the 6th verse of chapter 5, where we will hear the mitzvot, that's the commandments. I, Yahuwah, am your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, the house of bondage. You shall have no other Elohim beside me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image, any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters below the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, Yahuwah, your Elohim, am an impassioned Elohim, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not swear falsely by the name of Yahuwah, your Elohim. For Yahuwah will not clear one who swears falsely by his name. Observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, as Yahuwah, your Elohim, has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah, your Elohim. You shall not do any work, you, your son, or your daughter, your male or female slave, your ox, or your ass, or any of your cattle, or the stranger in your settlements, so that your male and female slave may rest as you do. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, commonly called Egypt, and Yahuwah, your Elohim, freed you from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahuwah, your Elohim, has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Honor or provide substance for your father and mother, as Yahshua your Elohim has commanded you, that you may long endure or live long, and that you may fare well in the land that Yahshua your Elohim is assigning to you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall not crave your neighbor's house, or his field, or his male or female slave, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. Now we want to look at Mark chapter 12, and we want to begin at the 28th verse. We want to read through verse 31. These passages in the writings of the apostles indicate that the Shema was being declared and was known during the time of our Messiah, and was very significant. Beginning at the 28th verse of Mark chapter 12. And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Yahshua answered him, the first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is none other commandment greater than these. Baruch Hashem. Bless his great name. The Almighty be praised. It is common for us to read not only the Shema, but to read the Torah, the scriptures that remind us of the path of separateness, the commandments. And when we remind ourselves of the commandments that the Most High, the Creator, gave to the world and covenanted with us, the house of Israel, in the Messiah, we continue to keep before us those things that are pleasing to the Almighty. We remind ourselves of his ways. And when we do that, we keep in mind that the manner in which we obey the commands is based on our love for the Almighty and our love for people. Scriptures, it teaches us, you shall love Yahuwah with all of your heart, all of your soul, and with all of your strength. And then it says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. To love Elohim means to obey and keep those commandments that are directly related to Elohim. And there is a section in the commandments that were read that relate directly to the Most High and our worship that's connected to him. And then there's another portion of commands that's related to our interaction with other human beings. And when we love one another as we love ourselves, what happens is we keep those commandments that are related to our interactions with other people. And so the foundation of love, and something we need to know about love is this: love is not an emotion from the Hebrew mindset and understanding, but love is an action. Ahav means to do and perform or to support. So any type of action where we demonstrate support, assistance, and help towards another individual, that is the idea of love Hebraically. So when we talk about love from the perspective of the scriptures, it's not an emotion. Emotions can be attached to it. Don't get me wrong. The Almighty is very emotional. He has emotions such as love and hate and all of those things. But love, for the most part, is an action. It is an action. And so when we say that we love the Almighty, it is something we demonstrate, not something that we feel, but something that we demonstrate. And so it's important that we be mindful of that. The Almighty be praised. There are some things that I want to make mention to us today, and that is that let's continue to be in prayer for a dear brother by the name of Derek Cole. He's an elder in the body, and last week he went to the hospital. He had been challenged with kidney failure for some time, but had an open heart surgery and then immediately was brought back to the hospital, and right now is under sedation. And I asked for the people of the Most High to call out his name. His name is Derek Cole. For the Almighty to work a miracle of deliverance in his heart, to restore his breathing, that he will remain among us. And so let's remember that name, Derek Cole, in prayer. Please remember that name. He's a dear brother to us. He's a part of this ministry, although he's not here locally, but he is in Texas and has been connected with us for many years. And so we want to remember this dear brother in prayer. Bless the Almighty. I also want to make known to us that we're planning to go to Africa in the following year or upcoming year, next summer. And so we ask for your prayers and also for your financial support, that you would assist us and help us. It's our desire to go to Africa, that we may be able to reach out and minister to the congregations there that are associated with the ministry here, that has been connected with us for some years. It will be a first time for us to go, but do be in prayer and in support, not just with your prayers of support, but also financially help us with whatever you can as we prepare for this trip to go and to be a greater blessing to the people of Elohim over in Africa. It's our desire to go to Kenya and also to Ghana. So let's be mindful of that. For those of you who would like to support us in that endeavor, you can go online to our website, which is www.ncmmi, that represents New Covenant Messianic Ministries International. That is ncmmi.2020 that's 20m.com. Again, that website is www.ncmmi.20m.com. And you can go down on that web page to the donate button and click that and contribute any amount that the Almighty puts in your heart to assist us. Also, for those who desire to share with a monetary contribution, offering, or tithing, there are some who are connected to us virtually around the world, and we ask that you would also contribute if you believe that this ministry is feeding you, and you consider me as an overseer to you that's feeding your soul. Then we would also ask and challenge you in obedience to the command of the Almighty to give an offering or a tithe. We do not demand it, because it is a part of the obedience to the scriptures that his people give in tithing and offering. You can also go to that same website, to the donate button, and donate there. It will be much appreciated. Your assistance and your help helps the work that the Almighty has entrusted us with to be able to continue and to be able to make the load a bit lighter. For we go out and we travel and we preach and we teach and we do seminars to bring the word of the Most High to the people of Elohim, so that they might be built up and encouraged in the things of the Almighty, so that they might be prepared for the coming of our King. So we ask that you would do those things in obedience to the Almighty, and it is so appreciative when you are obedient to the Almighty. Blessed be his great name. Well, today let's get right into the word. We're in the book of Acts. We're in the book of Acts. We're continuing in chapter 4 of the book of Acts. And we're going to begin at the 13th verse and read through to the 22nd verse. And for those who are watching, we ask that you would get a Bible. If you don't have a Bible, if you have a phone, use your phone or tablet or whatever you might have to access the scriptures. We encourage those who are hearing the teaching to follow along with us in the scriptures, so that you will know what is being preached to you. You will know what is being taught to you, and you'll be able to check me to make sure that I'm delivering the message correct. When we provide teaching, I use a Greek interlinear translation, which has a King James Version translation on the side, so that I may be able to, at any given moment as I'm led of the Spirit of the Most High, to be able to provide a more accurate explanation of the scriptures. I do want to say that although the scriptures that we have been given to us in the Greek language, I firmly believe, as many others, that most of the writings of the apostles were first written in Hebrew. It's important that we know that, and then translated into Greek, because Greek was the prominent language that was spoken by most of the world during the period of the first century. But there are many evidences when we look at this Greek writing that we have, where we see Hebrewisms in the text. So this is not classical Greek that you have here. It is a Greek that basically has Hebrew concepts in it. All right? It's Greek language with Hebrew clothes. So let's go to the 13th verse and we'll begin reading. Acts chapter 4, verse 13. Now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men. They marveled, and they took knowledge of them, that they had been with Yahshua. And beholding the man which was healed, standing with them, they could say nothing against it. But when they had commanded them to go aside out of the council, they conferred among themselves, saying, What shall we do to these men? For that indeed a notable miracle has been done by them, and is manifested to all them that dwell in Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it. But that it spread no further among the people, let us straitly threaten them, that they speak henceforth to no man in this name. And they called them and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Yahshua. But Peter, or Kepha in the Hebrew, and John answered and said to them, Whether it be right in the sight of Elohim to hearken to you, more than to Elohim you judge. For we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard. So when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them, because of the people, for all glorified Elohim for that which was done. For the man was above 40 years old, on whom this miracle of healing was showed. Abba Yah, thank you for this opportunity to teach the scriptures. And I ask that you would supply your anointing through your Ruach, your spirit, and that you would give clarity to the teaching, open the hearts and the ears of the hearer, that they may receive the word from Elohim, that it will not be my word, because I'm just a steward. I'm a servant, a Nabi of the Most High, and I ask that you would speak, Most High, through the teaching, that it would bring edification, that it would bring encouragement and strength to the hearer. And for everything that is accomplished, may your great name be praised, and may Yahshua be glorified. We thank you through his name. Amen. Well, we bless the Most High for all that we learn through the scriptures to help us to see more accurately the purpose of the Father as he is bringing the message of his Messiah to the unbelieving Israelite. We know first and foremost when the Messiah gave commandment and mandated that the apostles began to preach and to teach. He said, wait in Jerusalem, be filled with the power of the Ruach. You will be my martyrs, and you will begin in Jerusalem, and then the rest of Judah, Samaria, and to the rest of the world. At this time, the apostles were still in Jerusalem. And we've made that known in the previous chapters that we've already provided teaching for as we're going through this systematically. And we know that in chapter 3, which is where we get the catalyst of this whole situation, Kepha and Yochanan, Peter and John, are going to the temple. They see a man that's lame. They get him healed. The people rejoice and give the Most High praise and glory. They continue in the temple to the place where prayer was normally conducted, which was in Solomon's porch. They provide an explanation to the audience of other Israelites that were also there for prayer. And then the Sadducees, those who were the custodians of the temple and the taking care of the holy things, this is the priest and their family, or his family, they came out to observe what was going on because they got wind that these two men were preaching about the resurrection. And we had discussed this on last Sabbath. They had arrested them, questioned them, and then realized that there's nothing that they could really do to these men, so they had to let them go. So that brings us up to verse 13 through 22 that we're looking at today. And it says that when they saw, this is the group of the Sadducees, it says, when they saw the boldness of Kepha, that's Peter, but I'm using his Hebrew name, Kepha and Yochanan, and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled, and they took knowledge of them that they had been with Yahshua. Now, what's interesting about this is that they began to note that these men were not men from Jerusalem. See, the disciples were from northern Israel. So they had a different way of speaking. They were not using language of the learned as the religious leaders in Jerusalem would normally use. They were making sense. They were preaching about the Messiah. They were declaring the things that they had seen and witnessed. But to these learned, educated Sadducees, those who were schooled in the religious purposes of the temple, because you see at that time they had got it down to a science, and you know how it is. Those who are accustomed to what we would call religious culture, there are certain terms and phrases and way in which you say things that's a little different from the average folk. And all Peter and John knew was not only what Torah said, because every Israelite knew Torah, but they had followed the Messiah, Yahshua, so they were not accustomed to all of the religious jargon and the religious philosophy that had developed among the Sadducees and also among the Pharisees, because those were two religious sects within the faith of Israel that were developing a theology which was based upon their own opinions on the scriptures that it caused the original intent of the scriptures to actually become null and void. So they called them unlearned men. And that's because that they didn't have the same academic background as the Sadducees. So they said, well, these men are unlearned. But we need to check this out because they just performed a miracle here. And they are bold in their teaching and in their preaching. So something different about them. So it says when they saw the boldness of them, perceiving that they were unlearned and ignorant, it just means that they were looked at as being uneducated men, especially since they were from northern Israel. So they didn't really have a good reputation as being someone having a good academic background. The Apostle Paul was a little different. He would be considered one of their academians because he came from the school of the Pharisees. So he was trained a certain way in the religious philosophy. So he would have been viewed a little differently. But Peter and John, they just rough, rugged Galilean Israelites from northern Israel. And, you know, they were just being obedient to the Messiah, being full of the power of the Ruach, the Holy Spirit. But it says that they took knowledge of them that they had been with Yahshua. So they knew that these men had been with the Messiah because they had heard them teaching in his name. And they also noticed the man that was lame, that he's now healed. So they're scratching their heads about this situation and trying to figure out how is it that these uneducated northern Israelites from Galilee, a place where we don't think that there's nothing good that can come out of Galilee because they are there with those Gentiles, those of the nations up there, so they're not really getting the real Torah. See, this was the mindset of the religious philosophy down in southern Israel, down in Jerusalem. And since Peter and John were now in Jerusalem, this was their new home. I mean, they had been there many times because they'd come down when the feast times would come. They would come down to Jerusalem and then go back up to northern Israel. But now they had made Jerusalem, at least at that particular point in time, their permanent residence. So they're getting accustomed to the community. They weren't strangers to the temple, but when you go from one environment to another environment, and, you know, you don't sound like everybody around you. That's like somebody from the South going up to New York, you know. As soon as they hear them open their mouth, they know, no, they're from down south. You know. So here, they're getting acclimated to the environment, and they are seen already as being unlearned and ignorant. Because they didn't quite fit in. I'm trying to lay a foundation here and paint a picture so that we can see how they were viewed. But these men, Kepha and Yochanan, though they were considered as being unlearned by those who were observing them, were keen in their understanding of what the Messiah had taught them and what he had given them to do. So as we continue on, it says that the religious leaders couldn't say anything against them and what had occurred. Now check this out in verse 15. But when they had commanded them to go aside out of the council, they conferred among themselves. So what we see here in this verse, the Sadducees saw what had taken place and said, you know what, let's just have them to go outside of this council. We need to have a discussion about this. And so these Sadducees came together and began to discuss what to do about this situation. They knew that the miracle was a legitimate miracle because the man that was healed was someone that they knew or was aware of and was indeed a lame man. It wasn't like he was someone who just showed up that nobody knew. It wasn't like this was one of those, scams, how some people do, where they may bring somebody in that may act like they're lame or act like they're crippled, and then all of a sudden they will say, be healed, and then the person's healed so that the person who performed the healing can gather an audience to themselves. It wasn't like that. Now, that kind of stuff does go on. You have people that put on stage performances to try to gather audiences and use the name of the Messiah to do it. Now, that does not invalidate the true miracles and power of the Most High that continues to take place, because the power of the Almighty is still present and prevalent, and people still get healed of sickness, of diseases, of cancers, of all ailments, of lameness, of blindness. The mighty power of the Most High, Yahshua, through the name of Yahshua, is still alive and well and moving and working and touching and changing lives. So it's important that I make that known. His power has not diminished. So if there is a person that needs healing, you can call upon his name and receive healing. He's still a healer. Let me make that known. But by the same token, there are also scam artists as well. That's not operating in the power of the Most High. Well, anyway, as we look at that 15th verse, the religious leaders, the Sadducees, recognized that this miracle was legitimate. They could not brush it off. They could not act like, well, you know what, this is a scam, let's get them out of here. No. Because all of the people around were giving glory to the Most High for the miracle. Because they knew that man that was at the gate called Beautiful. Every day when people would come to have prayer, because you see, prayer occurred every day at the temple during the time of the morning and the evening sacrifice. There were 3 times a day in which people would come to the temple to pray. And this man would sit at the gate waiting for those who were coming to beg for alms. And he had gotten permission from the religious leaders to beg for alms. See, you couldn't just, and I mentioned this before, you couldn't just go and panhandle and beg unless you had gotten permission. And in order for a person to get permission to beg, they had to be a person who was disabled and did not have the ability to work for their own sustenance. So they all knew this man. So they couldn't write it off as a sham or as a scam. They couldn't write this miracle off. So they had to recognize that the power of Elohim had taken place in this miracle. So they are now conversing amongst themselves, and listen to what they say. It says, what shall we do to these men? For that indeed a notable miracle. They said, look, man, this miracle right here, this is legitimate. It's notable. Has been done by them. And it's been manifested. Not only has the miracle been performed, and we see the man healed here in the temple area praying, which is something that he probably never did, but it's also manifested In other words, it's been made known and broadcasted among all the people here for prayer. So there's nothing we can do to try to cover this thing up. I mean, you know, if the miracle had taken place and no one had observed the miracle, they may have been able to just scoop up Peter and John and the man that had been healed and just took them somewhere so that the attention would have never came to them and that the name of Yahshua would have not been glorified. But all of the people were there witnessing and observing what had taken place and saw this man get up, healed, and walking around, going into the temple in Solomon's porch and praying with everybody else. Man, that was a powerful experience. So these religious leaders couldn't get out of this. It's like, look, there's nothing we can do. So what do we do? They say, oh, this is what we'll do. We will threaten them not to preach and teach in that name. That's what we'll do. Now, why would they say, let us command them not to preach and teach in that name? And here's something that we need to understand about the culture, or let me say the governmental standing that the Sadducees had. The Sadducees were the ones who controlled the temple. In other words, the high priest's sons, all of those who were of the line of Zadok, Zadok's of the line of Aaron. They controlled the calendar. They were the ones who established the appointed times, or the Moedim. These were the true governors of the people of Israel. Now they had a figurehead named Herod, who was called king of the Judeans. But when you look at who was to be respected among those who were perpetuating the way of Yahshua, it was the Sadducees, those who were taking care of the priest functions, the high priests. These were the ones that Torah said are to teach Torah to the people. So they were the ones who were the legitimate governors over the house of Israel. They were the ones who were the spiritual, if I can use that terminology, spiritual leaders of the people. And to not hear and obey the command of the spiritual leader, which Torah said that any time you need to have an answer in things that were not explicitly spelled out in the Torah, it says you go before the priest and the judge at that time, and they will give you an answer. And whatever they say, that's what you are supposed to do. So if the spiritual leaders were to give a command, then it was the responsibility of the people or the person that the command was made to obey it. So they knew the authority that they had over the people based upon Torah. And this is why they say, let us command them not to preach in this name. Because you see, at that time, the Sadducees still believed that they were the ones that had spiritual control. They still believed that they were the custodians of the kingdom of Elohim. But mind you, Peter and John had been with Yahshua. And Peter and John was there when the Messiah gave the parable to the religious leaders found in Matthew 21, where Mashiach, Yahshua, said that the kingdom is being taken from you and given to another that shall bring forth its fruit. Peter was there in Matthew chapter 16, where the Messiah asked, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And they all responded and said, "Well, some say that you are Jeremiah, Eliyahu, one of the prophets, Yochanan the Immerser, that's John the Baptist." And then Messiah says, "But who do you say that I am?" And Kepha, commonly called Peter, he stood up and he said, "You are the Mashiach, ben Elohim. You're the Messiah, son of Elohim." And so the Messiah's response to Peter was that man didn't reveal this to you. Flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you. But my Father which is in heaven, he revealed this to you. But listen to what the Messiah said to Kepha. Messiah said to Kepha, "Your name is going to be called Kepha now. We're not calling you Shimon, Bar Yochanan, or Ben Yochanan. That's Simon Bar Jonah." He said, "But you're going to be called Kepha." And he said, "I'm building my assembly on this rock." But when you continue to read the 16th chapter of Matthew, Messiah says to Kepha that I'm giving to you the keys of the kingdom. And whatsoever you bind or you prohibit in earth shall be prohibited in the heavens. And whatsoever you loose, that means whatsoever you permit in the earth shall be permitted in the heavens. Now, why did I bring all that out? I brought that out because Peter was aware that there had been a shift in the spiritual government for the house of Israel. Peter was aware that the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who Messiah had said, they sit in Moses' seat. Do what they tell you, but don't follow their practices. He knew that there had been a shift in the spiritual government of the house of Israel. Peter knew that the keys of the kingdom of Elohim had been now transferred from the Sadducees and from the scribes, who were the custodians of the kingdom at that time, and were given now to the hands of the apostles. Peter knew that already. So when Peter and John, in their obedience to Torah, going to the temple, honoring the sacrifice that was being made, they knew that they were the ones that now had the stewardship of the kingdom of Elohim. So when the Sadducees got up and tried to command Peter and John and tell them, "Look, you can't preach in this name, Yahshua, anymore. We don't want you preaching in that name." Peter stood up and said, "Listen, we don't have no other choice but to declare those things which we have heard and that we have seen. You judge it." Peter was being mild with it. He wasn't trying to disrespect those who were in the set position, but had been dethroned from their place of authority. Sort of like Saul. Saul still sat on the throne, but David was the one who had the anointing of the king on his life. See, the apostles knew that the authority of the kingdom had been taken from the Sadducees. They knew that the authority had been taken from the Pharisees and had been given to them. But because they were not the ones who at that time were occupying those seats of authority in the face of the whole community of Israel, they basically had to toe the line, show respect, honor the priests, because Torah said, honor those who are in authority. Torah said that you are not supposed to dishonor or disrespect the Kohen Hagadol, the high priest. So Peter understood that, and Peter had respect. But Peter had a mandate from the Almighty that they were to preach in the name of Yahshua. So Peter said, look, we know exactly why you are trying to tell us not to preach in this name, but we got to do it. Let me read this here. Verse 19. But Peter and John answered and said to them, whether it be right in the sight of Elohim to hearken to you more than unto Elohim you judge. Peter was saying to the religious leaders, listen, this thing that we are preaching, it's come from the Most High. This thing that we're doing, it's come from He who established the whole system of the faith of Israel. Everything that you all are doing in the temple, the Almighty has given us a word and a mandate to preach in this name. So whether you see it as being right or wrong, you got to judge that for yourself. But we've got to do what the Most High has commanded. So as we look at this, it says, for we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard. So the response of the religious leaders was this. They didn't give us what they actually said, but we're told that they continued to threaten them that they should not preach and teach in this name. And then it tells us that they couldn't do anything. I'm going to read the 21st verse. It says, so when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them. So they were not able to do anything to them. They had no cause to be able to punish them. The miracle was a legitimate miracle. They were able to cause a man's status, his station in life, to now be changed to a better station. He's healed. He can improve his life. He can work for himself. All of this was a good thing. It says because of the people. For all, it says, glorified Elohim for that which was done. So they couldn't do anything to the apostles. The people were glorifying the Most High. The people were giving praise and honor to the King for the Most High for the miracle. So there wasn't nothing that they could do. In verse 22 it says, for the man was above 40 years old on whom the miracle of healing was shown. Why is that important? Why is it important to note that this man was above 40 years of age? 40 was a significant age among the Israelites. Because when you were 40, you were now considered to be a person listened to, that would be heard. It was an age in which you were now to be regarded and had respect among the community. In the Israelite culture of that time, in order for you to be a teacher, you had to reach 30 years of age. At the age of 30, you could aspire to teach Torah. But at the age of 40, you would be regarded as an elder. You would be regarded as one that had respect among the community. You were not, quote unquote, under the authority of someone else for your person. And so this man, although he was crippled, because he was over the age of 40, he could speak for himself. In other words, what this is saying is that the religious leaders didn't have any leg to stand on to try to dismiss the miracle or to somehow discredit this act that the Most High had performed through the apostles. You know, if the man was under 40 years of age, they might have been able to try to say something to the effect that he can't speak for himself. This is not a legitimate miracle. They could have done something to discredit the miracle, but the man was at the age where he could speak for himself. He did not have to confer with anybody. And the people saw what had taken place. There were too many witnesses. Basically, the text is trying to tell us that the religious leaders did not have any way to discredit this notable miracle. The Most High always knows what he's doing. Anytime he shows up and wants to make it clear that he is working, that he is moving, and that you have to stop and recognize that he is at work and that there's no way of dismissing his mighty acts and his mighty power, he makes it known. But there are a lot of folks in the world, they like to dismiss and discredit the Almighty. They like to dismiss and discredit the work of the Most High in the world. You got folk that are atheists, people that feel as though there is no divine power, there is no Elohim. You just do what you do. You make life happen for you. Well, tell you what. Our very existence on this planet is all dependent upon the Creator. You and I didn't wish ourselves here into this world, and we don't have the power to dismiss ourselves out of this world. You might say, well, I have control of my own life. I can take it if I want to. You don't have control over your destiny. If you choose to check out of here by putting a gun to your temple and saying, I don't want to be here no more, I'm checking out, I'm done with life, you know what's going to happen? You're going to appear before the Creator and give an account for your actions. We are not our own. Now, just because we're here and we may make choices to determine whether we'll be in this realm or not, we do not have control over our final destiny. You don't have the ability to see that far down the road. Every day we wake up in the morning, we think, oh, it's just us. It's just my body functions. No, it is the Almighty giving you breath. Every time you lay down and you go to sleep, the Almighty wakes you up with breath for the next day. Because in the foreknowledge of his mind and of his will, he still has purpose and destiny for each and every human being that is alive on this planet. The real question is, are you going to choose to follow the Most High who created you? Are you going to choose to follow the created, marked out plan of the Almighty for your life? Or are you going to follow the ideology of the world system around you? Listen, the mercies of the Creator are new every morning. The grace of the Creator is available to all human beings. When I say grace, I'm not talking about some unmerited favor, because that is a Greek mindset or a Greek definition of grace. The concept of grace, and every concept in the Bible, comes from the Hebrew understanding of it. And grace from a Hebrew mindset, hear me here, it's the word chain. It's the word that means you are divided from the world and brought into the house of Elohim. That's the word picture. The word picture means that the Almighty invites you into his house. That's what it means. And you are then shielded and separated from the world from which you came. That's what it means in the word picture. The Most High is inviting the world to come to his house. He's made that available to the whole human race. But the world has said, we don't need your provision. We don't need your offer. The world is saying, we don't need what you have provided for us. The Father is calling all of humanity to return to him and to be a part of his family once again. But in an age where men are doing what they want to do to accomplish their own agenda and purpose, because in their mind they do not have faith in the Creator, and they believe that if they are going to have a good life, they have to make it happen on their own. But what they don't realize is that if they do not obey the commands of the Almighty, they will not have the support or blessing of the Almighty. See, the way it works in the economy of the Most High is like this. The Almighty has created the whole universe. He made it so that it would function, and that the things that grow in the earth, that produce in the earth, will continue to produce. Because of sin, there are interruptions with things that occur in the earth. And what he has said to those who are in covenant with him, those who have been delivered out of the darkness and brought into the marvelous light of the Messiah, Yahshua, they who are in covenant have the support of the Creator. That's what the word blessing means. To be blessed means you have the support and the security of the Creator upon your life. So that when you go and you perform life in the earth, it will work for you. When you plant seed, you have the support of the Creator. It will come up for you. There will be no interruption. When you need something to occur in your life, if you need a healing in your life, the covenant says, I will remove sickness from you. Why? Because you have the support of the Creator upon your life. Those of the world, they experience the creation. They experience that which the Almighty has created, and they utilize the things in this life to create what they want, to make life better for themselves, but you never know what might happen. They may have it for a while, then they may not have it. But the blessed person has the support of the Almighty upon their lives. Those who we see in this world who are trying to live life and do it their way, without the support of the Creator, you might be saying to yourself, well, life is good. I've got money in the bank. I've got property. You might say all is well. Everything is working out for me. And then all of a sudden sickness hits. Disease hits. And then all of that you have amassed in this life is all meaningless, because your life now has now been decimated by this disease. And unless you have the support of the Almighty upon your life through the Messiah Yahshua, there is no healing, there is no miracle, there is no blessing. You might say, well, I will go to the physicians of the world. There's some sicknesses and there's some diseases that there is no medicine, there is no cure for. There's nothing you can do. Listen, and I'm wrapping this up. If you're trying to do life on your own and make it happen on your own without the support of the Almighty, you could go ahead and do that. But you are not guaranteed an eternal destiny, nor are you guaranteed abundance of life in this world. Because the only way to have that is through the Messiah Yahshua. Messiah said, I've come that you might have Chaim. That's life, continual life, eternal life. And that you might have it more abundantly. Not just in the new world that's coming, but in this life. But if you don't have him, if you're not submitted to Yahshua, the one to whom Peter and John preached that brought healing to the lame man, then you'll never be able to experience what the Almighty is offering. I challenge you today. I challenge you. Those of you that do not know the Messiah, submit yourself to him. Those of you that are straddling the fence, submit yourself to him. And I encourage those of you who know him, endure to the end. And the promise of eternal deliverance and the blessing of the covenant will always be upon your life. The Most High be praised. Let us pray. Abinu Makenu, thank you for your mercy, your grace, your kindness, your goodness. I trust that the word that has been shared today has brought conviction to the hearts and the lives of those who have heard it. I pray, Most High, that it has caused the hearer to think and to consider their own life. May self-examination take place in the lives of the hearers, in the lives of those that do not believe. May they come to the realization that they must submit to the authority of King Yahshua and allow him to have dominion in their life, that they might be made whole. If there are those who are sick, those who are afflicted, those who may have diseases, send your word of healing out right now. I speak and I declare that the healing power of Yahshua go to them and raise them up. That it go to them and remove cancers. That it go to them and remove diseases. That it go to them and remove AIDS. That it go to them and it remove dilapidating diseases. That it would go to them and that it would bring deliverance to those who are broken. Whether they are broken physically or emotionally, bring healing by the power of Elohim through the name of Yahshua. Do it in the lives of the people. And we'll give your great name the praise, O Most High Yah. Thank you in the mighty name of Yahshua. Amen. Hallelujah. May his great name be praised. I trust that the teaching was encouraging to those who heard it and that it caused you to think and to consider your own disposition in Elohim. Want to encourage every believer to continue to be obedient to Messiah. Continue to walk in the way of Torah. You know, there are many people out there that are talking about the blessed life and having the blessed life. And I need to say this, because there are many, many voices in the world. Many that are preaching the Messiah, that are teaching the Messiah. And I want to say that the only way that you can have blessing, that you can have Baruch Atah, you can have, as the Most High says, blessed are you. That means having his support upon your life is through obedience. For those who are saved and in the Messiah, you must be obedient to the commandments. I want to challenge you to read Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 14. The Most High says that if you will keep my commandments, my covenant indeed. And he says that if you are diligent, that means you make it a point to be obedient to the commandments. He says, then all these blessings will come upon you. There is no magic formula. If you want to have the support of the Almighty upon your life, that's blessing, then you must obey his commandments. There is no other way of doing it. Some might say, well, if you give this offering, if you sow this seed, then this blessing will come upon you. You will get back in return. And yes, there are scriptures where the Messiah said, cast your bread upon the waters, and not many days thereafter you will get it back. There are passages that refer to getting increase based upon giving. But the thing is that there's so many out there that want you to give them money for their projects or their person and are telling you if you do it, you'll be blessed. What I'm telling you is obey the scriptures. There are some scriptures that command us to give because the Most High declared it. And that as a result of your obedience to the commandments of the Most High, you will have his support upon your life, his blessing. Read Deuteronomy 28. Read it over and over and over again. And then once you have read it and you have gotten that in your spirit, Deuteronomy 28 verses 1 through 15. After you have read those verses, then live obediently to the Most High. And when you have a need that arises in your life or you have a somewhat interruption, you can go before the Most High and petition him and say, Abba, your covenant says to me, thus, and so. And I've been obedient to your commandments. And watch and see if the Almighty doesn't turn that thing around for you. he will do it, because he is an Elohim that keeps his word. So be encouraged. The Almighty be praised. Well, at this time we want to share in our communion, our fellowship together. So I want to speak blessing over the bread and the cup. And for those who are watching, who have been following with us, you know that if you have your bread and your wine or juice prepared, then please, if you haven't prepared it, please get it quickly, so that as we speak blessing over the bread and the cup, we will also automatically bless the bread and cup that you may have as well, because we are connected as we are live streaming, and you're able to receive from the same spirit and presence that's here. Bless the Almighty. So prepare your elements, your bread and your wine or juice, as we speak the blessing over the bread and the cup. Baruch atah Yahshua Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz. Blessed are you, O Yahshua, our Elohim, King of the universe, bringer of bread from the earth. We bless you for our Messiah, Yahshua, that he is our bread of life and manna from heaven. Baruch Hashem. Regarding the cup, Baruch atah Yahuwah Eloheinu melech ha'olam, Borei pri hagafen. Blessed are you, O Yahuwah, our Elohim, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. We bless you for our Messiah's spilled blood that has been given for our redemption and our healing in the renewed covenant. Baruch Hashem. Bless the Most High. As we partake of the elements, we've already noted that the bread represents our Messiah being the bread that came down from heaven. You may eat the bread. We bless the Most High for our Messiah, Yahshua, the cup representing his blood that was spilled for our redemption and healing through the renewed covenant. Let us drink the cup. Hallelujah. The Most High be praised. The Most High be praised. The Most High be praised. Hallelujah. May you bless your people. May you strengthen your people. May you encourage your people. May they recognize the oneness that we share in the house of Israel through the Messiah, that your great name is to be glorified and praised. Hallelujah. Well, I trust that you've been blessed and that you've been encouraged through the teaching, and that the Almighty has become more real in your life. We trust that the teaching of the scriptures has become alive to you, and that you are learning and that you are growing in your faith. Blessed be he. For those who might be interested in learning more about the Hebrew Israelite understanding of their faith, I want to invite you to go to our website at www.ncmmi.20m.com. That is www.ncmmi.20m.com, where you can learn about the ancient Messianic Israelite faith. And when I say that, I'm referring to the faith that is pre-Catholic. Our faith is an Israelite Hebraic faith in the Messiah, Yahshua. And there's a great deal of information that we have available for those who are interested in further studies. As you go through the website, go to the link called the Written Word Library, and we have free biblical studies courses that are available. And you can also enroll in our Bible Institute, School of Messiah Bible Institute. And so we trust that the Word has been encouraging and that it has been helpful. Continue to pray for the people of the Most High everywhere, that we may all come in the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of Elohim unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of the Messiah. The Almighty be praised. At this time, let us speak the final blessing. Yeberekeka Yahshua ve'yismareka Ya'ir Yahuwah panav ileka vikuneka Yesa Yahuwah panav ileka ve'yesim lekha shalom. Now may Yahuwah bless you and protect you. May Yahuwah make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. Abinu shalom aleichem. Our Father's peace be upon you. Shabbat shalom to each and every one of you. Go